Can the Cajuns pull off the seemingly unthinkable and beat JMU? Plus, the LSU women's basketball team ranked top 5 according to ESPN. We're talking about that and so much more today on the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast. All right, welcome back to another edition of the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast. Appreciate you listening in each and every weekday. Make sure you follow us if you haven't already on Spotify. That way you, like Aerosmith, don't miss a single thing that we are bringing to you on this podcast, on this great platform we have. And also follow us on social media as well, working on kind of adding more content as we kind of move forward, onward, and upward in the world. And trust me, we got a lot of great stuff coming your way. And I want to start off with LSU women's basketball. We don't talk much about women's hoops or just basketball in general. I'm sure we're going to get into that a lot more as we start to shift towards that mode when we get into, next month, because obviously college basketball is actually going to be starting a lot sooner than you think. And everybody's obviously going to be focused on college basketball this season. Everybody's still focused solely on what's going on with, college football because it's the big sport. But I think women's college basketball has been the one that's been the biggest surprise in terms of how quickly it has grown. And LSU got ranked number 5 according to ESPN with their top 25 rankings. And they broke down a little bit more about key players joining the program that are going to make the biggest difference heading into the 2025-2026 season. And for LSU, they selected Malaysia Fawili, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that name right. And she comes from South Carolina. Absolutely one of the biggest rivals for Kim Mulkey. That's been the biggest thorn in her side. And now she's making her way over to Baton Rouge, and she's going to play alongside Flau'jae Johnson and Michaela Williams, two great players in their own right. Could that be the final piece towards Kim Mulkey securing another national championship? I'm sure she would love to have another opportunity to be at the top of her game. Obviously, Flau'jae Johnson, I'm sure she would be over the moon to have the crown jewel of that first real recruiting class that Kim Mulkey was able to get in after coming over from Baylor and say, hey, this is what I can do for you. If you want to win national championships, this is the place to be. And she has a golden opportunity to do just that, rounding out the top 5. Speaking of South Carolina, they're actually number 2. And then UConn, it feels like a perfect world now that they're back into the top 25 at number 1, preseason-wise, UConn, South Carolina, UCLA, and at number 4 is the Texas Longhorns. Going to be a fun time in the SEC to see how well these programs kind of gel together as we are kind of proceeding into kind of a different world in college hoops with Texas joining the conference at Dixie. They were part of it last year, but I think this could be a lot more of an interesting conference than maybe it was a couple of years ago, because we looked at that conference as being, largely dominated by Dawn Staley in South Carolina. Now we see this program, and Kim Mulkey's helped rebuild a program that pretty much was on life support for many years, and now they are legitimately a contender to be in the Final Four any given year, I think, at this point in time. Again, I could be completely off base here, but if they don't get hurt, there's a very good chance that LSU is going to be making a run in the NCAA tournament before it is all said and done. That's kind of just where I see things right here, right now. Meanwhile, we're going to get back to the world of college football because we need to talk about some of the games going on this weekend. And I'll start off with the game that's going on a Thursday night. That's right. College football is officially getting into the midweek mode, and I'm all the way here for it. I am a college football sicko to the core, and we're going to have some games starting tomorrow It's 49 straight days of college football in our lives. It is that time of year, and it all starts tomorrow night. But we've got 2 games involving teams for the state of Louisiana that are be going down on Thursday. We'll talk about those a little bit more in depth on tomorrow's pod, but I want to kind of focus on one game in particular, mainly because it's a doozy. It is a bit of a challenge because it's Tulane taking on East Carolina. Now, why do I say that? Because this is a team that beat Northwestern to start the season. Yeah, this is a team that Tulane looked competitive against in every game except for the Ole Miss game. They looked good in a lot of different aspects. They were kind of underwhelming in that ball game, but they have looked good in all the other ones. In fact, if you compare the 2 teams, they seem relatively evenly matched. East Carolina's 3-2, and they are one of the best defensive teams, 13.4 points per game compared to Tulane allowing 24 points per game. Obviously, that score got a wee bit inflated because of what happened just a couple weeks ago against Ole Miss with that drubbing where they lost 45-10, bounce back against Tulsa, and also the South Alabama Duke games definitely kind of skewed the score a little bit more. But I think the biggest question mark that I'm going to have is the passing yardage for Tulane's defense. They've been able to get some good takeaways. Like last time when they played Tulsa, they looked really good picking off the football. Very impressive. That said, you can't rely on that every single time, and it's going to be a challenge to see how East Carolina is going to respond to this really good Tulane Green Wave team, especially when they have a really good quarterback at the helm. It's not Jake Retzloff. Jake Retzloff's been good, but I think East Carolina's quarterback is on a slightly different level right now. 5 games in, he has 1,500 yards. He's got 4 interceptions and 7 touchdowns. But at the end of the day, he is slinging the ball a lot more, and it seems like the game is going to be reliant on making sure that you can stop Caton Hauser. The guy has some talent throwing the ball through the air. And I think also, to be fair, him on the road is a little interesting. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 659 yards, 71% passing percentage, completion percentage, excuse me. Overall, not half bad to start the season. Again, last year didn't necessarily look all that great. 18 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. The ratio's a little lopsided. And Jake Retzloff, he only has 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. But the biggest story has been what he can do with his legs. He's not just going to be a, one-directional player. He's going to be a dual threat. 368 rushing yards, 820 yards passing. He's going to be somebody you have to keep an eye on if you are East Carolina, regardless of how that game looks. Again, defensive-wise, I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for Tulane. So because they are going against a air raid offense, and whenever you look at their passing yard, when you look at where they rank right here, right now, they sit towards the bottom of the pack and the bottom quarter at averaging 251.4 yards per game, 3rd worst in the conference. Meanwhile, you get East Carolina 186 yards passing. So you got a really stout defense against against the passing game has gotten cooked. And I think we're all hoping that East Carolina has one of those underwhelming games. We see quite a few picks, and Tulane comes away with a really nice win, especially after a really good win over Tulsa to open up conference play. That said, you have to really show out in this ball game if you want to have a chance to continue to set yourself up for some great things in the not too distant future. Again, I don't believe that the college football playoff is in play. But if you want to get into a really good bowl game, let's say late December, early January, then we can talk. I'll give my prediction more on tomorrow's pod, but I definitely feel like that is going to be a game that I want to keep an eye on as we kind of shift into the weekend games and start focusing in on that side. Obviously, we'll get to some of the picks on the weekend as well on Friday, but I'm going to definitely give you my predictions for the two games that are going down on Thursday on tomorrow's podcast. And I'll wrap it up in a nice little bow with what's going on with the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. They have a big game on the road, 11 a.m., nationally televised at that. And I'm sure there'll be some day drinking going on at Girard Park watching that ball game against JMU. Now, JMU is a great program. They have shown themselves to be very solid since joining the Sun Belt Conference. It feels like tradition at this point, where if you come over from the FCS, immediately you are going to make an impact. You are going to do some cool stuff, and more importantly, you are going to have a chance to excel as a team in the SBC. It just feels like that's been the case. You look at App State, Coastal Carolina, now JMU, Texas State, not so much, but just those two or three programs are a prime example of moving up and finding the right spot and finding success pretty much immediately. Yes, they haven't played in a championship game, but they haven't been eligible for one, to be fair. I mean, same with Marshall, for being honest. Marshall, before their head coach jumped ship over to Southern Miss, they have made an impact very, very quickly. It's just incredible to see, when somebody does leave, it feels like that conference gets even better. I think about it going back to, the expansion back in the mid 2010s when you saw FAU and FIU go ahead and exit stage left and go to Conference USA, which has essentially become probably the lowest rated conference in the group of six, if not the Pac-12 or the Pac whatever they're going to call themselves. That's something where I just sat there. I'm like, that's great. We have a chance to do something really special with the Sun Belt Conference and what they've been able to kind of put together over the last few years. Yes, you have some programs like Georgia State and Georgia Southern that are up and down, but in terms of the overall quality of the conference, it's continuing to rise. And they have this big game against JMU, and they have, according to a lot of the experts, ESPN's FPI was saying like it's a 78% chance that JMU wins that ball game against the Cajuns. I think there's no doubt it's going to be a tough uphill climb. But if anybody can do it, I think this Cajuns team with Lunch, Winfield, they're a little bit of a different monster. Yes, they have a lot of film on them, especially the last 20 minutes of that ball game. But I think even seeing that isn't necessarily going to tell JMU much of anything. So I definitely feel like that gives this Cajuns team a lot more of a chance than I believe the experts and the think tanks like to believe. Because Lunch Winfield, he gave an offense that had been stagnant a spark that hadn't been seen in the last couple of years. You were down by double digits and the game got sideways very, very quickly. You were up for maybe 45 seconds before, going back to the game against Marshall. You were down tremendously in that game very quickly because of the pick six and all the other stuff that happened. You can't have that against JMU. You've got to come out extremely strong to be able to pull this off. And if you do it, it's a massive upset, and I think the fans will be overjoyed if it happens. The odds of it happening, I think they are very slim. I'm not saying slim to none, and Slim's already left the building, because I'm going to give them a lot more credit than that. Simply because of the fact that you have a team that I think, starting to believe in itself. Because if you lost that game to Marshall and that game got more out of hand, it was more lopsided, I think this fan base as well as the team would start to lose faith in themselves and not believe. You've had a week to get everybody rested up. Lunch Winfield seems fine even after the ankle injury that he seemed to sustain. Again, I'm no doctor. It's just based off of what I saw when I watched the game with my own two eyes inside the stadium just about 10 days ago. Now we're sitting here getting ready for a Saturday game that I don't think anybody expected to see an 11 a.m. kickoff on a Saturday for this Cajuns team that only has 2 wins on the year. And one of them is probably one of the highlight reel making victories of the last 4 or 5 years for this Cajuns team. I wish I had more time to kind of get to this last week, but it definitely belongs in that conversation of top 2, top 3 all-time Cajuns wins that I've been able to go see. Maybe that could be more of a bonus piece of content that we'll put up on the YouTube channel. We're dropping some exclusive stuff over there, so if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button today. So do it. The Cajuns pull off the upset. I think the biggest key is going to be what Lunch Winfield does. If he gets under pressure, if he's just cooked right from the jump, I don't think it happens. But I'm hoping against hope we do get this done. As a fan and as somebody who covers the team, I would love to be talking to you on a Monday morning more about a win than a lopsided loss. And that goes for any team in the state of Louisiana, because at the end of the day, I understand negativity draws clicks, but honestly, wins bring a lot more joy. At least this is the way I see it. Appreciate you listening into the podcast. Make sure you go subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast today. And also follow us on social media. You just got to search Louisiana Lunch Hour. And guess what? We're right there. So make sure you check us out today. But until tomorrow, have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you down the road.